Welcome to the Setting Trick Podcast. My name is John McAllister, and I bet if you're listening, you love to play bridge just like I do. Today, we welcome one of the bridge world's leading lights, a true superstar, Englishman Andrew Robson. As you will hear on this episode, Andrew both plays and bids the cards quite well. If you're an improving player like I am, I highly recommend Andrew's advanced daily videos at andrewrobsonbridgecast.com. In this episode, Andrew's going to talk about a deal in the bronze medal match of the 2017 Transnational Teams World Championships, where he and David Gold were the only pair to get to the only making Grand Slam of 7 diamonds on the deal. And I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit here because I finished 10th in that event. And granted, I had world-class partner and teammates, but I'm learning things on his Bridgecast videos that, frankly, it's a little embarrassing that I hadn't learned yet. So I'm grateful that that's a resource that I can use. And I highly recommend checking out the video, which is available in our show notes, of Andrew and David's auction, and then the play, and then the high five afterwards. Hi, Andrew. Thank you for doing this.
Pleasure, John. Hi.
I was thinking I wanted to start with your accident, your walking accident, since we had similar...
We've got that in common, haven't we?
Yeah.
Hope your recovery is going okay, John.
It is. I'm very pleased. And I was surprised to learn about your accident.
One has to be very patient. It's sort of exciting in the first few days in a weird way. Wounds take a while to heal, and you just have to do your exercises and just remember that every day is a small improvement on the previous day. But for me, I knew my body was never going to be the same as it was before. And in fact, I had my accident on February the 23rd, 2001. And I will always remember the day that I could walk unaided for the first time because it was September the 11th, 2001, a day we all remember.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was a long, old haul. The reality is I was very lucky to survive. But you never think so at the time. But then you look back and you realize just how many good things had to happen. People had to be out walking, they had to hear me, there had to be a mobile phone signal, and then the mountain rescue service had to be able to come and send a full thing, and I was helicoptered up from the Lake District. I mean, I'd fallen really badly. I'd gone where I shouldn't have gone because I got myself stuck into a bad situation where I couldn't go back and I couldn't go forward, slipped on some ice, fell about over 100 foot over a cliff. Amazingly lucky to land on my feet and not land on my back or my head. Otherwise, I would have been a goner. I found out since then that this is an accident black spot, and many people have fallen exactly where I fell, and most of them haven't lived to tell the tale. As soon as the Mountain Rescue Service knew where I was, they knew exactly what had happened to me, and they sent a whole team. But it was 3 hours of, increasing pain. And then after 3 hours, the first chap arrived and I was injected with 30 milligrams of pure diamorphine, the strongest painkiller known to man, heroin, otherwise known as. And sort of flying for a couple of days after that. Horrible for my wife and my child of under 1 year old. So it was pretty horrible time, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing.
I'm very lucky to make it. I can't run, and there's a lot of things I can't do. In fact, the doctor said you won't be able to do a whole series of things. And I think apparently I have proved them rather wrong because I am doing a lot of stuff, but I can't, my running days are over.
Well, I'm very glad that you survived.
Well, same with you, mate.
Thank you.
A horrible accident.
Yeah. Yeah, it was also involved ice, and I was in a situation that I regret being in. I was driving too fast on a road where there could be ice, and I hit the ice, and that flipped my car, and it was very scary. I had enough time before the actual impact to think that this might be,
Did you feel like I felt? Really relaxed in that moment and just sort of shrugged and as if to say, whatever will be. I think we're trained our forebears in a panic situation like that to be really calm and cool. And I was really calm and cool as I fell all that long distance.
Mm.
Not so cool in your area, or?
I think I was actually. I think I've accepted that there was really nothing I could do.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So were you yelling? How did
Well,
people
I
hear?
landed and I thought, well, that was a pretty stupid thing to do. And I don't know if you know the film and the book called Touching the Void, Joe Simpson, where he had a horrible fall and he broke his leg and he had to crawl for about 3 days to get to base camp. And I thought, oh God, I've got to do a Joe Simpson and I've got to start crawling. So I bent to start the crawl and then I couldn't move. It's so weird when you're telling your limbs to do something and they won't move. It's so weird. And I thought, oh dear, I'm in a bit of a bad shape. So after a sort of 30-second pause of assessing the situation, because your first thought is in a way that you're playing some video game and you've lost, you've lost, and you thought, right, abort, let's do that again. Then you realize actually you can't abort and do it again. You are where you are and you've got to live out this game. And so I then called, I shouted and I shouted. No one heard me straight away. I shouted, you've got to help me. Someone's got to help me. And eventually, I don't know, when I say eventually, it could have been 10 minutes, but it could have been 1 minute. It's hard to know. But eventually, this person said, where are you? And I said, I'm here, helpfully. And they said, which side of the mountain are you? And there was a big echo. And I realized then that they had no idea where I was. So I actually had to describe where I was. And there were two charming people. I spoilt their walk for them because one of them stayed with me and the other one went and used their mobile phone. And mobile phones 20 years ago were not like completely universal. And also mobile phone signals were also pretty iffy. So I was very lucky they had a mobile phone and they had a signal and they were able to reach the mountain rescue service. And 3 hours later, a full squad came up and they'd organised a helicopter from the other end of England to come. And it was very windy. So what they had to do is they couldn't land a helicopter where I was or anywhere near where I was. So they had to stretch me, about 12 of them had to stretch me up this quite tricky path to the highest mountain in England, which is some way away, so that the helicopter could hover above it. And then they could send down a winch. They could put my stretcher and winch me up into the helicopter and then, take me to the hospital. Just one of those things had to not go right. No, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Wow. I can't believe you fell for 100 feet and landed on your,
it was pretty lucky, wasn't it? I landed on my feet. So my feet saved my life, but I'm afraid both my feet are quite badly buggered up. And I lived for 10 years or 9 years with a decreasingly good right foot, which was getting more and more arthritic, and to the point where I almost couldn't walk. And I went to see this doctor and walked in and I said, I'm fine, because I was that sort of stiff upper lip Englishman. And she said, well, we'll just take an x-ray anyway. And she took an x-ray and she looked at me and said, you are amazing, the fact that you are able to walk at all. This x-ray just shows just how badly damaged that ankle is. And essentially, you are going to have to clear your life and you are going to have a triple arthrodesis, which means you've fused all the bones together so that you don't have an ankle, basically. There's no movement in that area. It'll take 6 months of your life and you've just got to have to do it. So a year and a half later, I'd cleared everything out and that's what happened. And I had the triple arthrodesis operation. And so now my ankle is fixed, which means that you can't run and stuff because you haven't got an ankle to push off. But I'm back playing tennis and various things. I used to be a bit quick around the court, but hey, yeah.
So a lot of my information about you, a lot of the research I did comes from 20, 30 years ago.
Okay, cool.
And I saw you went to a school called Abington School?
Yeah, it was a sort of grammar school turned private school. Yeah. I wasn't a model student, it's fair to say.
You were not a model student.
I was not a model student. I think it's probably in keeping with a lot of bridge playing types that you're not great at being told what to do. But I discovered my passion for bridge by that stage. And so I would read bridge books behind my Latin primer. And I basically didn't do particularly well at school. But I started a bridge club and the interest was there, and that was great. Yeah. But I spent too much time at lunchtimes down at the pub, and the headmaster didn't like me very much. But I did, play first team tennis, and it wasn't too bad a time actually. But
so you would be sitting in class with a book, like the lesson, but then you'd have a bridge book buried underneath it.
Yeah, as long as the book that you're supposed to be reading is slightly bigger than the bridge book, and you can hide the bridge book behind it. I remember there was one, From Average to Expert by Barry Seabrook. I think is a Leicestershire player from England. I think he's long gone, but I remember I just loved the play of the cards more than the bidding really in those days. I loved the way that you could, ring the extra trick out, or you could make some sort of unusual ducking play. I remember even now, and this is 40 odd years later, there was you're in some 5-3 heart fit 6 hearts, and you've got a club suit which is 6 to the ace king facing a small singleton, and you had to duck the first club. Those sort of plays, they'd really stack up when you think it through, but they really had an impact on me in those days.
There's a book called World Class where Mark Smith interviewed you and other luminaries.
Okay.
And in the book, it said, in your first tournament, you were 15 years old representing Abingdon School, and you pulled off a non-simultaneous double squeeze to land a slam.
I think that is right, but I could have made it a lot more easily by roughing in the dummy.
Did you know what a non-simultaneous double squeeze was?
I'm not sure about the non-simultaneous bit, but I was able to say, I think he's got suit A and I think he's got suit B, so I don't think that either of them be able to keep suit C. So that was probably where I was.
It said you were playing in like a league, like a school league.
Schools Cup, yeah. We always drew against Eton. We'd get through the first round and then we'd draw Eton in the second round, and they would always beat us. And that's what happened. Yeah.
Is that league still around?
No, it isn't, you see. It isn't. In fact, there is a lot less bridge played in schools and universities these days. Bridge is thriving in many areas, but I'd say tournament bridge and youth bridge is probably not thriving in general.
It's amusing to me that you, like learning here, that you were like I don't know if you said poor student, but you weren't much of a student, and that originally you were interested in becoming a supply teacher after you graduated from college.
Yeah, I mean, I was slightly stumbling from one thing to the next. I remember doing my GCSE, my O-levels, and getting to the first day of the sixth form, and I had no idea whether I was going to do sciences or arts. I knew I was going to do maths. That was the only subject that I really liked. And I randomly, in the end, went with the sciences. But at the end of halfway through my A-levels, which is the sort of 16 to 18 years old, and you do 3 A-levels, I was doing maths, physics, and chemistry. And I remember doing the physics multiple choice, where you have to tick one of 4 answers. And I think there were 60 questions. So essentially, the second worst person got about 24 or something. A monkey ticking randomly would get 15, and I got 9. I think at that point I decided maybe physics wasn't for me, so I then changed to do medieval history in the last year. And then again, what to do? Do you go to university? What do you read? I applied to read maths, got in to read maths, no idea how, but I changed and I read psychology at university because that was more interesting to me. And I didn't fancy the 9 o'clock maths lectures in the morning either, because there were a lot of late night bridge sessions by then. And then finished university those 3 years, and again, didn't really know. So I did a graduate certificate in education year, mainly to postpone life and teaching maths. And then I did some supply teaching in schools, taught bridge as well in a prison. That was in Bristol in the West Country. But bridge was fairly London-centric, and so I was pulled to London, and then teaching went, and I was slightly bummed about in London and didn't have a lot of money, did even squatting for a small time. But things were starting to work out, and bridge, I was starting to represent Britain in the junior bridge scene. And then aged 25, I was on the team that won the World Bridge Championships, Junior Bridge Championships in Nottingham in England in 1989. And then Tony Forrester, the sort of leading British player. I was, if you like, regarded as a bit of the star, slight maverick star on junior team. And we started playing with each other. And we immediately started to win everything. I mean, I couldn't really believe that because I was just a little junior, but I felt I made a lot of mistakes. But actually, we had a really winning combination because he never made a mistake, never ever made a mistake. And I really brought the points in, although I shoveled a few points away as well. And we were beating Maxtroth and Rodwell and all these names, your old partner Georgie Mittleman and Eric Kopish and all these players. We were drubbing them all in the very early days. Yeah, which is amazing, really. I felt a bit of a fraud.
So winning the Junior World Championship was a big deal in terms of
big deal.
In terms of confidence for you.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, but I would say that probably the bridge success that is probably I would call my greatest was 2 years later in 1991 was winning the European Teams Championships. Great Britain hadn't done anything for a while, and we won it with a margin that has never been beaten ever since. And they didn't have Butler rankings in those days. But Tony and I, if they'd had Butler rankings, Tony and I they'd either have regarded us as a couple of freaks or they'd have thought that we were cheating because I think our Butler was so enormous. We just couldn't get a bad result for 2 weeks. And we weren't getting on that as people, actually. In fact, I hardly spoke to him. And hardly saw him because he was behind a screen. But we really gelled amazingly well, and that was, we almost never quite got it back after that. But it was amazing.
What do you think was the reason you did so well during those 2 weeks?
I think it was a combination of Tony never making a mistake and me being pretty youthful and creative, and also I had some pretty good instincts, played pretty well. Didn't make too many mistakes, although I definitely made a lot more mistakes than he would. And it was just we gelled in a way. Yeah, it's hard to. It just happened, and it continued to happen largely. But then we played this match called the Naturals against the Scientists. Yeah. Well, we were on the natural team, and we had to play no conventions. And so we devised a method which was essentially fell into the natural category, even though there were one or two fiddles involved to get away, But after devising this system, we thought it would be slightly amusing to play it. And our bridge definitely dropped off playing the natural method. You do need a few toys. I mean, play too many often. And it was generally regarded that we lost more because of bad play than bad bidding, although I do remember missing fourth suit forcing about 2 or 3 times. If conventions can be overrated, but I think that our bridge suffered through playing the natural method, which we did. And then about 1996 or 7, I thought I just need a bit of a break from playing with Tony. So we stopped playing, although we've been back on and off ever since. And we've had some big successes ever since. So he's always been a good friend. And he's godfather to my younger daughter and can be a tough cookie at the table, less so these days. It was amazing that we started partnering each other back in the very end of 1989, over 31 years ago now.
Did you approach him to play together? Or?
I was really determined. I thought we should play together. And I suppose I did approach him, but I knew that also separately he was approaching me. So it was a two-way thing. Yeah.
There's a treasure trove of great hands on your website under the category Andrew's Life and Bridge.
Oh, really?
There's one where you psyched, I think it was in the World Championships, you psyched a heart. They opened a no trump and you psyched 2 hearts with the
I remember. That was back in 1986. Yes. That was a fun event. I remember the aeroplane ride going over from Europe to Miami Beach to play in 1986, and it was my first big event, World Open Championships, but also Sabina Auken, her first big event, and Daniela von Arnim, and quite a few of us quite nervous, and we started to play some bridge on the flight over, and it was quite a special time, that. And my partner and I, Glyn Liggins, at the time, we were the only British pair to get into the final of the World Open pairs. Yeah. And yes, there was this hand where I think I had 7 spades, maybe king, queen, jack, to 7, something like that. And maybe 7-4-1-1 shape. Anyway, 1 no trump on my right. I'm sure we were non-vulnerable. So any old schmuck can bid spades. So I thought I'll bid 2 hearts, and obviously I had a run out. And then the guy on the left goes into a long tank. So he's obviously got loads of hearts, and eventually he emerges with a bid of 6 no trumps. So I lead my king of spades, and I can't exactly remember the heart suit, but anyway, if I've got my 2 heart bid, Declarer's got a totally 100% deep finesse that is bound to work. So he runs some 10 of hearts round to Glyn's queen or something, and then Glyn leads another spade over to my 6 spade winners. The opponents were not very happy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was surprised that you said the Euros was your greatest feat, given that you won back-to-back Reisingers.
Actually, yeah, the first Reisinger back in 98, I didn't play that well, actually. We were really carried by our teammates, Ger Helgamo and Tony Forrester. But 1999, for the last session of the semi-finals and the 2 sessions of the final, Rita and I were really card perfect. I said to Rita afterwards, just remember this day, because this will be our best day. There is no better day that we could have. And Tony came out. In fact, what happened was Tony went to the bathroom about 2/3 of the way through the last session. And we had a small lead going into the last session. But Tony and Ger had not been having a very good session, according to him, at the time. And he overheard someone say, "How's the Reisinger going?" And then the other person said, "Oh, it's all over. There's a runaway winner." And Tony didn't hear who it was or anything, but he assumed it couldn't be us because their results weren't that good. So he went back to the table slightly despondently. And so we played the last couple of rounds, and he came over shaking his head. And we had won by, I think, 9 boards.
Wow.
Rita and I were amazing. She played brilliantly, and I had one of those incredible days where everything worked, turned to gold. And so, yeah, that second Reisinger was pretty amazing.
How did you meet Rita, and how did you start playing with her?
Well, I think one year, it's probably back in 92. I was knocked out early of the event that we were playing in, the Vanderbilt maybe, and Bobby Goldman put Rita and I together to play in a couple of days event. I don't think we did very well, but I know Rita enjoyed it, and she was interested to play in the future. And so she rang up maybe about a year later, and she said, "Can you do it?" And I said, "I'm afraid I can't. I'm running this bridge club in Northwest London, the Accolades Club. It's actually a full-time job. I won't be able to do that." That job didn't work out. So about a year later, I rang Rita and said, "Are you still up for it?" And she said, yes. And so we started to play in about late 93 or so. And I played with her every national for about 10 years. And we had our peak at the end of the 90s. And then it dropped off a bit in the early 2000s. And then young family, and I said, "Rita, I can't, I can do only 1 a year. And now I'm really sorry. Too busy with bridge stuff over here as well." I'd started the Andrew Robson Bridge Club by that point, and that was going well. And we played the full nationals for several years, and then even that was too much for me. And so I haven't been able to get over. But I think assuming Austin happens later this year, there is a plan for an English team to go over, and I may be able to get over then to play. But I haven't been to play in a nationals since Providence, Rhode Island in 2014. I've just been too busy with stuff.
Does Queen Elizabeth, does she play bridge?
I have met her. She doesn't play bridge, no. In fact, I think she probably doesn't like bridge very much because Princess Diana played bridge, and I think they had their differences before, obviously, Diana's tragic end. I think Camilla plays, and she's, I think, slightly stayed clear of it, but she's actually charming to meet. Yeah, the Queen. Yeah.
How did you find out that you were going to be getting this award?
Oh, a bit bizarre, really. You get a letter or something about 6 weeks before. It was a total surprise to me. But it wasn't really to do with my achievements in the bridge world. It was more because I rush around the country running loads of charity bridge events, about 40 big charity bridge events every year. not the last year for obvious reasons. And I don't organize them. I just pitch up and teach for the day. But they raise quite a lot of money for a charity, maybe 5,000 quid a day. And I do get paid, but at sort of non-commercial rate. And if I do 40 plus a year, I haven't really worked it out, but I'm sure I've raised well over £1 million over the years. So that was the main reason why I got given, the OBE.
So it's called the Order of
the British Empire. I think they may be thinking of changing the name because it sounds a bit colonial, but yes, Order of the British Empire. I mean, to be honest, it's not really my thing because I'm hugely grateful to the people who helped to get it for me, but I don't do what I do to be given an OBE.
Sure.
So I don't really use it.
Are you knighted?
No, knighting is another step up. I don't think that'll happen, but yeah. No, I'm only an OBE. Oh, they say other buggers' efforts, they say, because it is normally, you have to have been put up and stuff by other people. Yeah.
What's the British team looking like these days? Like, who's your partner there?
Well, I mean, Tony and I were playing until very recently. We played in a place that none of us really knew of until 18 months ago, Wuhan, in the World Bridge Championships in October or September 2019, a month or so before various things broke out. And we were in the quarterfinal, Tony and I, and we were playing Mextroth and Rodwell, our old foes. And we had a lead of nearly 70 imps with 2 sets to play. And we went down in a very shaky 4 spades doubled on the first board, which largely depended on guessing the 10 of clubs. And Tony misguessed. I've definitely felt for him, but I know he was a bit upset with himself. He then forgot the transfer after about 5 boards, and we did not have a good set. It wasn't a shocking set, but it was littered with minuses. We probably had 9 minuses and 7 pluses. So then we went out to score with our teammates, Artur Malinowski and David Bakshi. They had 14 minuses and 2 pluses. So we knew it was bad. And we'd lost about 65 imps and 16 boards.
Wow.
And yeah, so the bubble had burst, and then we lost a few more in the last set. But it was fun.
It's said in World Class that your greatest ambition was to win the Bermuda Bowl. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I'm not really an ambitions person in a way. My ambition is more that I want to play the best I can play on a given day or even on a given session. And the thing about winning the Bermuda Bowl is it does require a lot of things to fall into place. Many of them are not down to you. You need to have the right other players on the team and blah, blah, blah. So it's all very well to have that ambition, but it's not something I can achieve by myself. It would be nice to win one, but I think our best opportunity to win the Bermuda Bowl was, had 2 really good opportunities. One was in 1991, where in Yokohama, where Tony and I had just come off the European Championships, and we were the favourites. Poland were the second favourites, and we drew them. I remember in the round robin, we were trying to avoid each other by finishing in a place within the round robin that would mean that we wouldn't have to play Poland in the quarterfinals. So were they. So there was some dumping going on. The ethics of dumping are very marginal. So I said to Tony, I don't really want to be part of a set in which we're deliberately losing points. So Tony played with a different partner in that last match. And I think they couldn't lose the match by enough as it happened. So we did end up playing Poland Poland were trying to lose their last match as well, but it was meant to be. But we just never really got it together. I think when you fly east, it's much, much harder than when you fly west. When I used to play in the Nationals with Rita, I used to often fly on the Thursday and then play the evening charity game on the Thursday night. No problem at all. You just go to bed a bit late, you wake up a bit early the next morning and you've acclimatized straight away. But if you fly east, it's all to do with our rhythms. It's very hard to play when you fly east. And the only player who played well in Yokohama in 91 was our dear teammate, the late John Armstrong. And John, he trained himself. So for about a month before flying, he would go to bed at about 7 in the evening, wake up at 2 in the morning and play the piano through the night so that he was acclimatized before he actually arrived. And he was the only guy who played really well when we went there. Tony and I really struggled. Yeah. And we lost in the quarterfinals to Poland. And then Iceland went on to win the final. No disrespect to Iceland whatsoever. But it was a team that we would probably have expected to have beaten, and we did have that event to win, and we blew it. I should have got up. I should have trained myself in the 6 weeks beforehand and done what John Armstrong did. And then the other time was in Chennai in 2015, where we lost the semi-final against the Polish team by 1 imp in the semi-final. So obviously no one could do anything there. And then we went on to play in the third, fourth place playoff against the secondary USA team. Really nice boys. You'll know them all, Gavin Woolpert and that lot. And again, we lost by 1 imp. On both matches, we were leading with 1 board to play and lost by 1 imp. So that was all a bit galling and a bit gutting. Yeah. And then, so it's possible at the moment's past, but I am playing now with David Gold, or potentially playing with David Gold. I'm not saying my partnership with Tony is necessarily over, because it's been off and on for 31 years. So why is it now over? But now, David Gold's a fine British player, English player. We gel pretty well as well, David and I, and we won the trials in the only proper event we've played. Well, actually, we played in the transnationals together on a team 3 years previously. And that was our first time partnership, but we'd never played a board before. And David was trying to learn the system in the half hour arriving to the game. So what could go wrong in a way? But actually, we had a pretty good event. And that was the event where we had the famous board in the third, fourth place playoff against the Lavazza team, playing against Moulton and Helgamo. I don't know if you know the deal I'm talking about. You do?
I watched the video last night.
What?
I watched the video
really?
of the
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. So that was quite exciting to get that one right. Yeah. Yeah. Really exciting. Yeah.
No, I please tell it. Please tell it. I mean, like there's this hand, Andrew's talking about it. He opens a no trump. David transfers to spades. And now you super accept with 3 spades.
Yeah, and we hadn't discussed whether that was maximum or whether that was normal. Or we played a fairly basic method. David then bid 4 clubs. Now, very much my style, David's style, our style is for that to be much more of a natural bid. I'm quite opposed to this style where you just make a random control showing bid, which may show a bare ace or even a void, or may show 5 to the king jack. You never know where you are. So I'm a big fan of the first bid after suit agreement in majors is a natural bid, essentially. So he bid 4 clubs, and I had 3 to the jack in clubs. So I was worried about the clubs. It looked like maybe we had a third round club loser. I had 4 decent spades. I had 2 bad, I had ace jack to 4 spades. I had jack to 3 clubs. I had king, queen, jack to 4 diamonds, and I must have had ace, doubleton, heart. I think that was my hand. Ace, jack to 4, ace, doubleton, king, queen, jack to 4 diamonds, and jack to 3 clubs. So he bids 4 clubs. So I thought I had to cooperate, and I wanted to bid 4 diamonds, partly because that's where I lived, and partly because I didn't have the best hand with jack to 3 clubs. So I wanted to bid 4 diamonds. So if he bid a last train 4 hearts, I could then bid 4 spades. So I wanted to bid 4 diamonds, partly irrespective of my diamond holding, because it would tempo the bidding better, but obviously partly because it was where I lived. So now David goes 4 no trumps, which is interesting. So I bid whatever I bid, 5 hearts. So I had 2 aces, and now he goes 6 clubs. So message number 1, we've got all the aces. So that's fine. So I know he's got king, queen to 5 spades. Message number 2, his 6 clubs is zeroing me in on the third round of clubs, logically. So he must have 4 clubs to the ace king, possibly 5 clubs to the ace king, but probably 4 clubs to the ace king. Obviously, he's got the ace of diamonds. And he's also bid Blackwood when he hasn't heard about my ace of hearts. So it's likely he's got a singleton heart. So I thought his hand had to be 5 to the king, queen of spades, singleton heart, 3 diamonds to the ace, and 4 clubs to the ace king. And if that's his hand, then although we've got only 12 tricks in spades, because the heart ruff is in the long hand, we've got 13 tricks in diamonds. So after just checking my logic through, I jumped to 7 diamonds. And that was only part of the good thing, because I think David in some ways did the best of all, because suddenly here's a suit that hasn't been mentioned at all, and Robson's just jumped to 7 of that suit. And so the screen went quiet for about 4 or 5 minutes, and eventually DG put a pass on the table and shoved the screen back. And yeah, the play was quite quick, and I remember checking that the Queen of Clubs wasn't dropping Doubleton, because that would have been a bit of a shame, because then 7 spades would have made, and finding out that it was, and this was the last board of the 3rd, 4th place playoff. Now, we did have a big lead going into the last set, so 1 or 2 people slightly ungraciously said it's all very well, but they knew they were winning the match. That wasn't quite the case, because the first board of the 2nd set, it went a typical auction. I can't remember exactly, but it went something like 2 hearts past 4 hearts. We've all had that before, and we're wondering whether to bid 4 spades. And we've got 5 decent spades, and we don't know whether the 4 heart bidder is stealing or whether they're bidding to make. I tend to bid 4 spades because I hate to be stolen from, but I don't mind going for a number. But some their whole mentality of bridge is the other way around to mine. So I obviously bid 4 spades. Now, the good news was that they dropped a trick on defense. But the bad news was I was doubled and I went 3 down, and they wouldn't have made 4 hearts. So that was a pretty bad start to the set. And then the second board of the set, I remember fishing for a marginal slam. Probably should have settled for 3 no trump. Maybe DG wasn't that happy with his bidding either. There was a bit of a misunderstanding, maybe. Not, it was hardly played a board together. But we got to it. We bailed out a slam into 5 clubs. And essentially, David played it entirely technically correctly, but it was one of those hands which was going to fall apart if clubs were full. So that was 3 down with 3 no trump cold. And so I knew we'd lost 26 imps in the first 2 boards. So even though the set started to go a bit better for us, it wasn't for sure that we were winning this match. So it could have been on the last board. In fact, it wasn't on the last board because it was fine, but it could have been.
We had dinner with Rita and George. I don't remember what tournament it was at. It was a national. So I watched the video yesterday. And what I'm trying to say is that after you checked Helgamo's hand to see that he had queen 3rd of clubs, you give David like this huge high five. It's not really a high five. It's like a 5. And it's like you're just really pumped, man. It's really
an amazing
cool
moment. And actually, when you have an amazing moment like that, you share with someone, then you'll have that moment always and forever. It's quite a special moment, really. And we both knew that we'd both done something amazing on that board, and that no one was ever going to take it away from us. Yeah, I mean, it was put up for best bid hand of the year, and we both slightly thought we probably would win it, but in fact, we didn't win it.
You did not win best bid hand of the year.
No, we didn't. And I think it could have been an element of politics about it. I think that they were doing the prize giving in China, and I think that they wanted one of us to fly over to take the prize. And I think if neither of us were prepared to fly over, they were possibly going to give the prize to a homegrown pair. But I probably shouldn't say that, and I don't know for sure.
Okay, we could take that out if you don't want.
I don't mind, to be honest.
All right, great, even better. You started the Andrew Robson Bridge Club in 1995.
1995, yeah. So I have to say, I remember the great Bill Root said to me, a young teacher with, people saying good things about you. Can I give you one piece of advice? And he said, don't have a premises. Just hire halls and do it that way, but don't have a premises. And those words did stay with me, but I didn't, in the end, go along with them. And it has been an amazing ride, the Andrew Robson Bridge Club, actually, from absolute scratch. So I'm very proud of my team, and, pretty early on, really, that you have to start people up from scratch, and you have to make it really light and fun and simplify the game down, and you can't tolerate any sort of bad behavior in any way, and you've got to make it very touchy-feely and optimistic. Should I bid 3 spades on some hand? You don't say, no, that's the most absurd bid I've ever seen. You say, yeah, that's a nice thought. And the other thing that you could possibly do is bid, you express things in different ways. You never make people look silly, and you always boss them, and always take the glass half full approach. I mean, I've taught so many people over the years. I do many, many taster sessions where you're teaching people who don't even know what a club is or a spade is. and you get them started and you just make them realize that it's a fabulous social game that is an amazing way to spend time and meet people and also test your brain and cooperate with your partner, compete in a very nice way against the opponents. So, I mean, bridge is an amazing game, but it's such an amazing game that its complexity is sometimes makes it hard for people. That's why it doesn't get as much traction with young people, because they want the quick fix in a way that bridge is so subtle and nuanced that, and that's the joy of it, that it does suffer slightly in the modern quick fix era as a result of that. Yeah, we play a little bit of family bridge, not too often.
So your wife plays also?
Wife plays. Wife is actually one of the rare bridge players who is better than she thinks she is.
Now, did being listed as one of the hot properties in the let's see what the magazine was.
Yeah, I've done some research.
Harper's and Queens, you were listed as one of the hot properties in like 98 or 99. Was that,
Yeah.
is that how you?
No, I think I met her through friends, and also because I think I done a bit of bridge teaching of her, so classical style. Yeah, in fact, she was, some of the female pupils, admire their teacher in ways, but she definitely didn't. That was I had to slightly fight for it in a way, which was more interesting perhaps. But
what did you do? What did you do for it?
Oh, I don't. She wasn't fawning over me at all, which was.
I think my mom has a crush on you.
No, I'm sure not.
Yeah. No, because I got her. I signed her up for your bridge cast.
Oh, good.
My mom loved it. She was, and I think she had a sneaker for you. She would be like, "Oh, he's so cute."
Well, that's very nice. Yeah. Those are fun doing those bridge casts. I'm enjoying doing those. Yeah.
Where do you come up with the hands for your bridge casts?
Most of them I make up to illustrate a point. Because the thing about bridge hands is there's always a lot of noise, or often a lot of noise. So if you're trying to make a specific point, you don't want some other little sort of side issue to get in the way of the main point. So generally speaking, it is best to actually create hands. I'm not able to do very many things well in the world, but I can. I've done that so often for so many years.
And so you're creating 4 deals per day.
Well, the beginner and the improver are sort of more courses that I've already created and done most of the filming already. So they'll go round in a cycle. But because you're not going to be a beginner forever. You're going to go from beginner to improver. So you can't keep on going and going with that. And similarly, improver. But intermediates, you can certainly be an intermediate forever. And why not? Go for it. Great. And similarly, advanced. You can take the advanced to really quite a high level, and trying to make the advanced not too system-based, because trying to reach out across the pond to 5-card majors. I mean, although it is based on ACCOL, weak no trump, 4-card majors. But
going back to the non-simultaneous double squeeze at the Avenue, was that a big deal?
So I do remember a little bit how it went, because what happened was there was a bid on my right. So I think I opened something like 1 heart. I think my partner made a strong jump shift, which is sort of the way we did things in those days, and jumped to 2 spades. And the vulnerability was that we were vul and the opponents were not. And the Eton boy on my right bid 3 clubs. Now, we in the end got to 6 hearts. But I remember my club suit was doubleton king in the dummy and 3 to the ace in my hand. So I could easily have roughed a club to generate my 12th trick.
Yeah.
But I thought my right-hand opponent was have a 6th club to bid 3 clubs. And I would have got over-roughed. I couldn't afford to rough high. I can't remember what the heart suit was. So I rejected that line. So as soon as I didn't rough the club, the Eton boy perked up. I realized that I was now on the back foot, and all I could do was get back to normality if I could pull something off. But I did have a bit of a plan. is I'd lost a trick early on, so I had the N-1, so I could just, play out my winners in a vaguely sensible way. But I remember when I won the last trick with some very low diamond or something, and Eton boy A shot a look to Eton boy B, and Eton boy B shot a look to Eton boy A, because they both thought they'd screwed up with their discard. And I don't think either of them realized that actually it was a genuine double squeeze. And I don't think I said anything.
I think Eton's probably the most of the British schools here in the United States because of the having gone
right.
there.
Yeah. My brother sent his boys to Eton. Yeah, it's a very fine school.
Meanwhile, Tom York and the group members of Radiohead went to
Radiohead. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, they were slightly after my time. But you're absolutely right. Tom York and the boys, the Radiohead boys. Yeah. And I mean, John, the brothers, Johnny, I've forgotten his last name now, but yeah, they were all. And the comedian David Mitchell, he was at Abingdon School. There's been some quite famous to be people at the school, and I don't think any of them really flourished at the school. But sometimes, in a way, boredom is a great motivator for you to actually become really good at something. I think if I'd been less bored at Abingdon School, I probably wouldn't have got to bridge the way I did. I would have been contributing more in sports and stuff. Yeah. One of the boys at the school, I think, got paralyzed playing rugby, maybe slightly before my time, but I did not want to play a contact sport where something like that could happen and you could find that your life has been stolen from you by someone doing a bad tackle. Although I did, I played quite a lot of football, soccer. I loved soccer. But tennis was my main, and cricket as well. Cricket and tennis were my two main sports. Yeah, I lived for sport. I mean, when I was growing up, I actually only really three things. I played golf. I used to be not bad at golf. I played tennis quite well, and I played bridge. Only those three things. And actually, I didn't realize that they do set you up quite well for later life.
You've sort of answered my question about, because the Radiohead guys said they apparently at some point were bridge players, but I guess you don't.
Maybe they were, but I think when I left, the bridge club at the school just dropped off. So I don't know if they played formally at the school. The bassist of Blur, the guitarist, the drummer maybe, Dave Rowntree. Is it Blur? Anyway, I mean, there's definitely some bridge that goes on, because when you're on tour, bridge is a good way to while away time. So I'm not at all surprised that Radiohead played bridge.
I really want to teach Justin Vernon. He's the lead singer of the band called Bon Iver, who I don't know at all, but he's like that's like my favorite band, and I really want to teach him bridge somehow.
Yeah, I would think these people could easily be open to that idea. I think maybe people are getting a bit screened out, young people, and they're looking to have a real experience that you get from actually playing. Why not? Back to the Future.
Are you doing teaching like on the online?
No, I'm not. I'm not really. Well, partly because it's very, very time consuming. And when I'm teaching a lot of people on Bridgecast, teaching like one or two tables or a few more is not so appealing. And also, I don't know, my style of teaching doesn't lend itself well to the online platform, really. I mean, apart from talking through interesting deals that I've created in the way that I want to talk them through on Bridgecast. In a way, I'm not sure that the online lessons would add so much to that. I don't know. But we do, through the Bridge Club, we are doing a lot of supervised practice session on this brilliant site, Real Bridge, where you see everybody. We were onto that really early. So, I mean, as we are recording, there will probably be maybe close to 100 people on Real Bridge having a supervised practice session with my teachers from the Andrew Robson Bridge Club, which has been closed for a year, but yeah, at some point may hopefully reopen again. It'll be very interesting to know how bridge bounces back. I mean, firstly in the tournament world, and second at sort of club level, really. Whether to what degree people have got used to playing digitally, and to what degree people actually want to be actually with the other players. even if it means traveling some distance to do so. I don't know. What do you think, John? How do you think bridge will bounce back?
Well, it's exciting. Like recently, we're recording this conversation on March 2nd. Like the ACBL has come out and said pretty much their plan is that it's going to happen. Providence has been canceled. And the Europeans, they're saying that there's going to be a European Championships one way or another.
Okay.
I think this is the pandemic is such a huge opportunity for bridge because it's something that you can play virtually. Like you can't play basketball virtually. And
it is a huge opportunity.
Like there's a guy in Seattle as part of an organization called Seattle Next Gen Bridge. And he's saying like their model was that they would go to schools and they would get a teacher at a school. And that was like, it just didn't, like, it's so much easier to teach these kids on the internet. They've got so much better retention and they're using
You're right. That's such a good idea. It is. It's so hard to actually do it in schools because, they have half an hour at lunch and whatever, and there's just a few of them, and some of them are late from a lesson or they've got to eat, and it never happens. But if it happens online, I agree. That could make a huge difference to youth bridge actually playing online.
I like playing on real bridge, but it's also I'm also used to playing on bridge base. So like sometimes there's some awkwardness, like when you have maybe a bad result or the opponents have a bad result, being on video with other people.
I can definitely see that because when you're playing bridge properly, you don't actually look at the other player. Real bridge, there's your mugshot. There you are. It's hard to not look. I've actually not played proper bridge on real bridge. I mean, I've supervised. It's great for supervising on real bridge because they call director and the director comes over. You can see all the 52 cards and you can make an instant judgment as to what someone should do, what you see around the table. Much easier to supervise on real bridge than it is to supervise when they're actually playing. But I sort of agree that when you're playing in a top tournament, then maybe BBO. Last week, I haven't done much online because it's not my absolutely favorite thing, but I do quite enjoy it and played last week in the alt new competition, the second week of that. And we're in this group of 6. I think we're in Group B, double round robin. So out of the 6 teams at the end of the double round robin, in 5th place, their score was above average and we were 6th. So you can imagine how skewed the table was at the end. We did not have a good week. We did not have a good week at all. No. My partner and I, well, it was quite a sort of cute auction, really. But in the end, we bid to 3 no trumps, and the guy on lead's got a lead problem. His clubs are ace, king, queen, jack, 10, 7, 2. So that crowned off a fine week. 4 hearts cold. Yeah.
To answer your question, I don't know what's gonna. I mean, this is just totally unprecedented. This period in our lifetimes, I think it's fair to say.
But I think looking at it as an opportunity is a good way of looking at it. Bringing in the new generation into a digital route into bridge. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Wait, I want to go back to September 11th when you walked again for the first time. So do you remember what that was?
So we were in a Muslim country. For 30 years, I ran a week of high stake rubber bridge with my friends from the Portland Club, Stuart Wheeler, and in Tangier. And we were in the middle of our week and we were going for lunch at the local hotel called the Mirage, looking over the Atlantic Ocean, right where the Mediterranean meets the Atlantic. So it's a pretty amazing spot. Giles Hargreave, one of the players, friend of mine, he was on his mobile phone. He's a stockbroker. And so he was checking the markets and he said, something's happened. It looks like something's gone into the World Trade Center, and obviously we didn't really know what the hell was going on. He kept on listening. Anyway, it became clear that this was something, and obviously very frightening for everybody. And so we bailed on our lunch quite quickly and went back and we watched CNN all afternoon. And obviously very gripping, and the way that the second plane went in, I mean, just extraordinary scenes. And as the afternoon was progressing, it was starting to become obvious that it was a horrific terrorist activity. I remember going down to the swimming pool in the early evening and having a conversation with a couple of the other people who were there. Was this like a game changer? Was it like the world until this moment and the world after this moment? Or was this just a really horrible terrorist attack, but life would recover and get back to the way it was? I was arguing that it, really going to make a big difference to the world. And I suppose that's been borne out by what's happened. I mean, going into Afghanistan and Iraq, whatever you think about those things, and then life ever since then but I do remember we were outside in the mirage, and I do remember taking those steps, a little bit painful, but managed to do it.
So you had gone to another country, and like, what, you just thought you could walk?
Well, I was on crutches, walking. In fact, 2 months before, I went to the Summer Nationals in Toronto with Rita, and I remember getting there a day early, and I remember my friend Marshall Lewis, and we went to the Niagara Falls, which was not a very sensible thing to do in crutches because it was wet. It would have been very easy to slip, and if you slip on crutches, it's not a good outcome. But I became very good at crutches. I had been on them for so long, and you can actually go quite a lot quicker on crutches than you can walking. You can almost get into a bit of a trot. But I do remember playing in Toronto that time, and my foot had to be elevated wherever possible. And so I sat and had my foot elevated on a chair to the side and having a perfectly nice game. And then one of my opponents said, "Why are you here? You shouldn't be here if you have to have your foot on a..." And I just thought that was a pretty bad comment, really. I think maybe they just got a bad result.
Do you think Tom Pask is enough to get the British team over the hump with the bowl?
Tom Pask, great player, teammate of mine, super chap, and definitely a heartthrob. A very, very fine player who's getting only better. So I'm definitely happy to long ago have passed the baton on in that regard, which I don't think even applied to me anyway. But definitely Tom is a great guy and a super player. Yes.
Yeah,
he's not. I don't think he's on the British team to play, the English team to play in the European Championships, though. I don't think he played in the trials. Even if the European Championships take place and then the English team qualify for the Bermuda Bowl, I don't think, sadly, Tom will be on the team, but definitely will be very soon, I'm sure.
I was surprised when I saw Archer on the team, like you were talking about.
He won't be on the team this time because he didn't do well enough in the trials. But yeah, totally different sort of player, Archer. He's a very, very fine player, Archer. Very brilliant card player. He has played a lot of his bridge with players of level.
Yeah.
So it is hard. When I used to play with Tony, he always used to know when I'd had a session of rubber bridge, which I used to play a lot. And obviously I'm playing a little bit of a solo game and taking a few undisciplined actions. And he would always know that I was playing that way. So I think it is quite hard to adapt your game when you've been playing with less experienced, weaker players to then be able to play a totally partnership game. But I think Arthur does play very, very well.
Last question, Zia. Will you tell us, you said Zia is one of your favorite people to play with?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played with Zia quite so much recently, but always lovely to play with Zia. He's the ultimate supportive partner, a really brilliant player, brilliant flair player, but also a brilliant cooperative partnership player as well. I mean, often when Zia and I play, he plays the straight guy more than I do. But sometimes we have because we both bid too much. So in a way, you don't want us to be partnering each other. You want us to be in different partnerships with a more solid partner. David Gold is a really brilliant player and has a more solid style. So probably he's a more natural partner for Zia and also maybe for me. But Zia and I have definitely enjoyed, lots of success, mainly in the nice chat. I mean, mistakes fall into two categories, really, or bad results fall into two categories. Well, bad results that you can do something about. There's a partnership mistake where Zia and I would look over an auction and decide the very subtle nuances of we haven't got to the right contract. And we go through every board. One of the reasons why we love playing with each other is because every meal, couple of glasses of wine, and you go through every board and all the subtle nuances, and not frightened to say that, that the partner probably could have done something different in that cooperative venture. So that's one category of non-optimum results. And then the other category is where a solo error has been made by a player. Zia will just say, "Oh, you farted." That's his terminology. And then no words will more be said about that. He's so not interested in that. And that's so right. There is absolutely no point in talking about someone who effectively revoked, and I've certainly done that plenty of times. That's the last word on the subject, but he is only interested in the partnership getting things wrong. And yeah, fine player. I'm sure I'll play with him again. Yeah, and yeah, super fun to hang around.
Well, it's helpful to have that terminology. I'm going to use that with my girlfriend. I can be a little bit I can be a little bit overbearing when she farts.
Great term, though, isn't it? It is a great term. It says it all. You don't have to say anymore. And then what happens in the end is you say to Zia, "Sorry, Zed, I farted," because yeah, the Americans call him Z, but I call him Zed. And yeah, "Sorry, Zed, I farted." And he'd never say anything more about it.
Are your girls friends with his boys?
Have met them a little bit, but actually we've lived our childhood. Their childhood has been somewhat in parallel rather than too much together. Yeah, they have met a little bit. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Andrew, so much. It's a pleasure to get to spend this time with you.
Great pleasure, John. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You've been really generous. Oh, I have one more question. I mean, so I read this book, and it said when you started the Andrew Robson Bridge Club, you got Simon Stockten.
Yeah.
To be your, and you had to track him down in the Himalayas. What was he doing in the?
Well, Simon's a bit of a hip, and he was in an ashram in somewhere in northern India. Dharmato, I managed to track him down there. Yeah. He came to work. He left a long time ago, actually, but I was talking to him about something only yesterday. So he's a friend. Yeah.
Gotcha. It just was funny how it was like in the book. It just made no mention that it was like unusual, like that it was like the most normal thing in the world that he had to be tracked down in the Himalayas.
Yeah. Well, we're a wonderful team. I'm very, very lucky to have the team I've got, and they all have their different characters. But I mean, if they were going to be a sort of regular guy working in the City of London or doing an accounting job, that they wouldn't be working at the Bridge Club. So they're bound to be a bit unusual and have their own characters in a way. And they're a wonderful mix of characters that gels very well. But it's been obviously a very, very strange time for all of us. For over a year, or just about a year now, we've been shut. But the team lives on.
I had the sense that you guys were having a lot of fun, particularly in the early days of the club, just as young men.
Yeah, we did. Absolutely. There were a lot of late nights, and fair bit of probably drinking and gallivanting and creating something from nothing, really. And I think we were very lucky, really, to do it at the right time. I mean, luck is, as we know, in all things, is a hugely important ingredient. So I'm not necessarily saying that I did all the right things business-wise in those days. I think I got a massive boost from the guy I started out with called Joel Cadbury, who brought a lot of his contacts in, and we got a massive head start. And there wasn't anything like it. And there was obviously a big market for a very sociable bridge club that was going to teach from scratch and make everybody feel safe and enjoy the game. There was nothing like that around at all. Bridge clubs were all a bit serious for people who already play, and perhaps people who were perhaps a tiny bit less tolerant of their partners' indiscretions. And so we try to do things a totally different way. And that obviously has resonated well.
All right. Well, like I said, thank you so much. And it's great to see you.
Pleasure. Very good luck with your recovery.
Thank you, sir. Yes. And I'll be in touch when we've got this all finished up.
Brilliant.
Excited to share it.
Sure. It was fun.
I really prepared hard for this episode because a player of Andrew's caliber is rare, and I really wanted to get it right. As we mentioned, Andrew very kindly did a video for his Bridgecast subscribers where Adam Kaplan, literally the name Double Dummy comes from Adam Kaplan's play on this deal. Andrew talk through the bidding and the play. And if you sign up for our email list, we will send you that video.